Meloni just met Donald Trump in the White House. Want to know how Meloni feels about Donald Trump and this meeting, and how Donald Trump feels about certain things that happened in the meeting that signify some sort of maybe a little bit of insecurity or lack of confidence because he's not in control? I'm going to point these out to you step by step so you can discover insight into people's psychology. People like Meloni, people that you probably will never get a chance to meet, or people like Donald Trump who probably will not have a chance to meet in your lifetime. But it gives you some insight that the media will never share with you. So stay tuned and learn about what's going on inside the minds of people like Meloni and Donald Trump in their recent meeting at the US White House. Here we go.
1 million more jobs in the last 2 years and a half.
Great.
Inflation is going down, so you forgive me if I promote a bit my country, but you're a businessman and you understand me. So, migration.
Now, you can see here where she's rubbing her hands. That's called self-pacifying, meaning she's feeling slightly nervous and maybe a little bit of anxiety, nervousness, and she's trying to comfort herself. It's exactly what's happening there. And I'm going to point out a couple of other interesting things you'll find. What else I find interesting is she's always sitting with this notebook with Donald Trump. And if you notice the assistants in the White House, from the West Wing, a woman you'll see in a moment on the left of Donald Trump, and her assistant also have notebooks. It's almost like with the notebook, she's being like a student of Donald Trump, or almost slightly, I don't want to use the word subservient, but she's taking kind of a back seat to let him have the glamour and the light and the center of attention is what it might be. It's just a curious thing. It's not in any way that she's less than Donald Trump, but I think she's trying to let him enjoy and be the center of attention, be in the spotlight.
Aumentata questa percentuale, anche se siamo ovviamente consapevoli che insomma il tema della difesa sia un tema particolare.
It's also really important to keep in mind that when Meloni's speaking here, English is not her native language, so that would obviously put her at a disadvantage in this type of meeting. So to be fair to her, again, it's not in any way that she's being subservient to Donald Trump, but she is a little bit on an unequal footing. She's in the White House, in the United States, with a hostile Europe towards Donald Trump. At least that's what we're hearing, the rhetoric from Ursula von der Leyen. And you can believe that they're watching this very, very closely. And she's trying to help Meloni, but it could actually mess her up in Europe if she's not careful. Because, I mean, they just got rid of Le Pen, and believe me, Meloni, unfortunately, is on their shit list, I'm certain. But anyway, now I want you to keep an eye on her legs, the way she crosses her legs at certain moments, and some interesting, funny things that will happen here in a moment or two. Okay, here in the woman that you see next to Donald Trump on the left, I'm going to point out to you here, she's carrying a book just like Meloni is. But this woman is just a staffer in the West Wing. I shouldn't say just a staffer, but she's a staffer in the West Wing, which means she holds a less prevalent position than obviously Meloni and, of course, Donald Trump. I want you to watch now how Meloni has her jaw and her head tilted towards Donald Trump, showing that she's listening, but it looks to me like the facial expression that she's not exactly comfortable or enjoying the experience. And she continues to pacify her hand, as you notice. So she has her head tilted, her jaw out slightly. Her facial expression looks like she's not really enjoying it. She's pacifying her hands. If you look at her feet, you can see how her legs are crossed, but again, she's going to make a shift here in a moment, which I want you to check out and see.
I'm optimistic on that.
I hope so.
You see that change there? How she hides one foot under the other one? To me, this signifies something has changed. Something in what Donald Trump has said has made her feel uncomfortable. And she's doing this to sort of control herself. Not just to control herself, but also to make herself feel more at ease in the situation. Nothing bad has happened. Keep in mind, this is all subconscious, subtle things that people do that they're not even aware of that they're doing. But if I was doing a job interview with somebody, this would be interesting for me, because I'd say, what is it I just said, or what is it I just asked, or what is it we just spoke about that created that reaction? We see here when Donald Trump talks about trying to destroy the country, and then he goes on to talk about activist judges. We see her cross her leg, tuck her one foot behind the other foot, pacify herself with touching the hair, lick her lips. All three of these things are called clusters, which means that it's pinched a nerve in her. It's created an emotional reaction to those comments that Donald Trump made. Either she's having similar experiences back in Italy, so she can relate and empathize, and that makes her uncomfortable, or she doesn't fully agree with Donald Trump, what he's saying. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, she's having an emotional reaction to what Donald Trump just said in that moment. Let's go on a bit further, because you're going to find out Donald Trump also has his insecurities. Another possibility, the reason she has that book, is that book makes her feel more confident. That's a possibility. I teach people sometimes in public speaking. If you feel really nervous and you don't know what to do with your hands when you're speaking to a group of people, have a marker, keep something in your hand so that it helps pacify you and helps you control your nerves. Most people don't need to do this, but it's useful for some people who experience a high level of anxiety when speaking in public. Speaking of which, if you're interested in becoming a better public speaker, contact us and we can help you become a great public speaker. All you got to do is just click the link below. Anyway, let's get back to our video. Now here's a point out you have of Donald Trump. You'll see he's going from what we call the low steeple. Merkel used to use this all the time. Now watch his hands, what they do all of a sudden, based on the question.
Elected to straighten that out, and
I was elected to straighten that out,
I'm doing that.
and I'm doing that.
But we have activist judges that don't want murderers to be.
Meloni's looking off up to the right, which means she's visualizing the past or the future, which I'm not really sure what that might mean.
Sent out of our country. They don't want killers and drug dealers and drug lords
And then when Donald Trump changes over,
and drug dealers and drug lords and
then we see him going from that low steeple to this. This is usually a sign of stress that's going on, right? This I learned from the FBI. So he's gone from this to this. But he's talking about drug dealers that they don't want to live and murderers to leave the country. They want to keep these murderers in the country and they want to keep these drug dealers in the country. So I could understand why that might stress him out, because he can't see why would you want to keep horrible criminals in your country. It just makes no logical sense, does it? So business leaders, if you want to find out the real deal about reading body language and understanding what it really is all about, contact us or click the link below our on-demand course, which is focused more towards sales. But the same techniques and things you need to know about for sales and body language also apply to negotiations, job interviews, or whatever. It doesn't really change. You can apply it to any area you want. And if you'd like personalized training or like to contact us, click the link below and do so. And business leaders, for more value like this, follow me.